I grew up in a huge family where we all like to stay connected with each other all the time, so family get togethers were quite common. The family would often gather at my grandma's house, located in the countryside, where we would catch up on each other's lives. Sometimes it was a simple feast, or other times it was a trip to the nearby lake. Those reunions were fun, but hanging out with my cousins was the main highlight of all. Twice a year, I, along with my cousins, used to go for a stay at my grandma's home, and we would make the memories of a lifetime. It used to be fun telling each other how life had been lately, pranking each other, doing our little adventures together until that one incident that changed our lives forever. It was during that August my cousins and I were on our summer break, so we were spending the whole month there at my grandma's. We were all young at the time. In fact, I, the oldest among them, was only 15. Our usual ritual was to hang out together, tell each other spooky stories, but this time we decided to do something else. Something out of the box. Something that we weren't quite prepared for. There were 4 of us. The 3 cousins were 10, 13, and 14 years old. We were getting ready for our nightly ritual when an idea popped into our heads, and we decided to have a campfire in Grandma's backyard. My grandma's house is in a rural suburb. The neighbors aren't too far when you're driving down the road to her house, but in the backyard, it's a thick forest with artificial paths through it. Each house is on a hill, so there's part of the cellar that's underground. We were towards the east side of her yard in a small patch of open land. You couldn't see the neighboring yards from there, and there was probably 3/4 of a mile to each side of us, and that was my grandma's property. It wouldn't be wrong to say that we were a bunch of daring kids who were not that easily scared of anything. I didn't even really believe in ghosts or anything. It was a little bit after 11 o'clock, and we were completely immersed in the game Truth or Dare. The game was going on in full swing, and one wild dare was coming in after the other. When it was my turn, my 13-year-old cousin Josh and I were given the dare to walk through the forest paths for 10 minutes straight. I got up from the ground with a smug smile, indicating I was ready to accept the dare, but Josh was hesitant to do so. He said it wasn't safe to go out there at such a late hour and that we should just forfeit, but I was determined. So I grabbed Josh's wrist and started marching toward the forest. We didn't bother carrying flashlights since the campfire could still kind of reach us. The bet was to walk into the forest for 10 minutes, but Josh was getting really scared, and it had only been a couple minutes. The forest canopy wasn't that deep, and the light was still seeping through the bushes. We turned and decided to walk on the same path to spend the next 10 minutes. As soon as I turned my back, my blood ran cold. It was as if someone had snatched the floor beneath my feet, and my voice just went mute. Josh and I started shivering as we looked at what was in front of us. What sticks out in my memory the most about this thing is how freaking white its eyes were. It was mostly human-like in shape, with a human skull and hands and feet, but it had a dog's torso. I was frozen with horror when it turned to face us. Whatever it was huge, so tall it almost blocked all the light coming through. We wanted to scream for help and run for our lives, but something about it made us freeze in place. This thing was scary, but my eyes were just fixed on it. It felt like I was being consumed. It smelled so bad, like a rotten corpse. I was still trying to figure out what to do next, and then Josh started puking beside me. This creature just smiled, looking at Josh, and its grin was even scarier. My panic started taking over, and I saw it shift and start to come near us. The smell grew stronger, and I was about to start throwing up too, but instead, I screamed at the top of my lungs, and so did Josh. Something on the creature's face changed, and it took a step backwards to the right. Our scream was loud enough to attract my cousins and Grandma, and I could hear them coming towards us. The creature let out a scream. It was so loud that I almost thought I would lose my hearing. Josh was completely scared, and he started crying. The creature took another step back and then leaped and disappeared toward our right. The coast was clear now, and I could see my grandma and cousins coming towards us, but the rest of the night was a blur. I'm not sure if I passed out or simply just didn't remember anything, but I woke up in my room with Josh beside me. My grandma had a huge basement, so all of my cousins used to sleep there. The basement had huge sliding doors, and my bed was right beside the gigantic glass window, which showed you a clear view of the backyard. I saw my cousins running and messing around outside, and a smile formed on my face. This house was in Michigan, so the weather started getting chilly in August. I sat on my bed watching my cousins goof off and decided to join them. I slipped on my denim jacket and shoes and went downstairs, but as soon as I reached the backyard, it dawned on me that they weren't running around out of fun, but instead, they were running around in panic and looking for my grandma. I was still trying to process what had happened when my eyes fell to the right and my breath hitched. Both of my grandma's dogs were lying dead beside the door. Their faces were twisted and their skin was covered in gashes. Before I could do or say anything, my attention diverted to my cousins yelling in the distance. Apparently, they found my grandma. I ran toward them and we all returned home safely within the next few minutes. We all decided to stay locked in for the rest of the night since Josh and I were still pretty freaked out about what happened. The next day, we spent the entire day watching TV and sipping hot chocolate. When night came, we all went to bed, forgetting about that chaos. I didn't want to think about that night or what we saw anymore. But little did I know, it still had its eyes on me. I woke up at 2 a.m. with a loud thud and the feeling that someone just hit my head. The room had 1 bunk bed and 2 queen-size beds. I shared a bed with Josh. Interrupted from my sleep, I sat on my bed and saw that all my cousins were awake and terrified. I looked at them, and the 13-year-old pointed its head toward the big glass window. I looked and felt my soul leaving my body. There it was again, the same humanoid creature grinning at me from the glass window, its face tightly pressed against the glass. I thought it would give up to the pressure at any moment and break. Its eyes were that same white color from that other night, and they were fixed on me and me only. It took a step backwards and was about to hit the glass when I let out a scream. Seeing my panic, my cousin started crying and yelling too. The creature's expression shifted and it started backing off. Before long, my grandma barged to the basement and the creature leapt back into the forest. I started crying hysterically and my grandma had to call the police to ensure our safety. The officer questioned Josh and me about all that had happened. As soon as the morning came, I called my parents and asked them to pick me up, as I refused to spend one more night near that forest. It's been years since that happened, and my cousins keep on assuring me that they haven't seen anything like that thing again. But I still can't convince myself to attend any sleepovers at Grandma's house because deep down, I feel like it'll come back looking for me. Let's just say the cousins' hangouts aren't so exciting for me anymore.